Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome back to New York the Clancy brothers and Makem.
It's of a brave young highwayman, the story we will tell. His name was William Brennan, and in Ireland he did dwell. 'Twas on the Kilworth mountains he commenced his wild career, and many a well-trained Norman before him shook with fear. And it's Brennan on the moor, Brennan on the moor, bold, brave and undaunted was young Brennan on the moor. One day upon the highway as Willie he went down.
There it is by the Grand City Hall in New York, as the song says.
Mary knew his features, and he said, young man, said he.
Waiting and waiting and waiting for the mayor. I suppose you always have to wait to see a mayor.
Our old friend Ed Koch.
Remember when we sang for you?
You sang so many times.
Yeah. Remember what we sang? In the year of our Lord 1806, we set sail from the cold Quay of Cork. We were sailing away.
We've known him since he began his political career. He and I started out many years ago in New York to get a little park built down by the Hudson River. When we met him here at City Hall, he said to me, Tom, I'm the mayor now. Is there anything you need done?
Put the hands up.
There we go.
His wife had gone to town, provisions for to buy. And when she saw her Willie, she...
Well, that was the next best thing to a civic reception, lads.
A lot different from the first time we ever arrived in New York
She
City.
handed him a
When we went first, Paddy Casey, my brother Tom and myself, the Travers, on that ship, the Marine Flasher, from Southampton to New York, we had no address in Canada, and we had a visa for Canada. We had no notion of what kind of a job we might get, who we might meet, or what the place was going to be like. And we had a very small amount of money. We probably had enough to keep us going for 3.5 weeks. Now you take with you, right, a photograph of your mother or your family or what have you. You take your toothbrush. You take a pen. And you might have a little whiskey if you were lucky, right? But mostly you have a fluttering heart. You were a week on the ship. It was a little community, it was nice. But then the moment had to come, and you always knew it was inevitable that would come, that you had to walk down that gangplank and leave that ship. And then you're on your own. We had to get a train from New York to Toronto and didn't have one address. And when we got off the train and all the people got out, got their bags, got into taxis, and started going off in their own direction, we just stood there. We had no address or nowhere to go. Tom went and had a haircut. I don't know why, but that's what he did. Anyway, there was a barber shop in the railway station. Walked out of the railway station. Now I could have turned left, right, or straight ahead. They were the only roads open. I went straight ahead. And I walked for about half a mile. And I came to a little dinky hotel, and I went in, and they had a room. We slept that night in that room, and we had plans the following morning to go out and get a place to live and jobs and find out how to live in North America.
Rise, Willie, rise still, and it's Brennan on the moor. Brennan on the moor, boy, brave and undaunted was your Brennan on the moor.
Greenwich Village, New York City, USA was a great place to start off. It was the mecca for the young actors and artists. Anyone striving to make it in New York City in the arts had to start off in Greenwich Village. This little theater behind us here played a great role in the beginnings of our performing in New York. Paddy, my brother Paddy, and I came to New York in around 1951, and my first experience with this little theater behind us is I produced and directed the Othello.
Tradition Records office, we had that down a few blocks down the street here too. And at night planning what recordings we were going to put out, I would sit in there and at night and I'd be writing it down and planning what we were going to do the following day, you know, what LPs we were going to put out, planning folk music. And at night when we had a few drinks, we used to tear into a few songs, you know.
Paddy and I had quite a good repertoire of the old songs. We didn't consider them folk songs, we just songs that we knew. And with other performers, we performed here on Saturday night. The Midnight Special, I think we called it.
1959, Liam Clancy and myself were in a play. We were a play of Paul Vincent Carroll's called Shadow and Substance. We were playing two priests. And a couple of men came to see us one night and said they were opening a folk club down the village. And we were living in the village at the time. And the folk club was to be called Gerdy's Fifth Peg. It later became known as Gerdy's Folk City.
You were around them all the time, and they just sang so many songs all the time. You couldn't help. But the first album I made, there was one song on it that it was an old song from I'd heard on an old banjo record someplace. But I did that song the way the Clancy brothers, I thought, would have done it. You know, if in their style.
Ireland was a very inhibiting place at that time, and could be still. There's a whole lot of repressions, you know, so much would have been repressed. Coming here to Greenwich Village, you could see yourself just walking around the streets today. There's a freedom. There are no social mores to which you have to conform, either cultural, sexual, sartorial, anything went.
With a burning bush above of its bottle top, and with laddens so tools to split them up.
My great ambition was to be an actor. I went from here and did some television shows in New York when they were doing live theatre on television.
Oh, Mr. Finn, you're going to be fined again. Ha, 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 Mr. Fun, you're going to be Mr. Finn again. But Dim, he stuttered from the lap. Damn! He was done.
Tim Finnegan lived in Walker Street, a gentle Irishman by the arm. He had a broad, so rich and sweet, and the rise in the world he carried the hot.
We did prop each other up, yes. We did. If I ran out of money, I'd get some from him. Maybe if he ran out of money, he'd get some from me. And even if we were in different parts of the world, we'd somehow get in touch with each other. And when we had no money to come back out here after we went home to a sister's wedding, we only had we pooled our money together and we only had enough for one ticket back to America. And at that time, your visa would run out if you didn't come back, see? So we pooled our money, bought one ticket for me, and then I worked 2 jobs in order to send home the money for Tom to get his ticket, you see? Because it'd be years working in Ireland to get the price of the ticket.
There is a backup when you have brothers. There is something that gives you a feeling of being a clan, being a group. And in strength, you get a lot of courage. You don't have to grapple with the individual decisions. You can kick things around and you can talk about the future and you can talk about planning.
When I was sitting down in that office in Tradition Records, Tommy came down and came in one day with his hand in a sling. He was working in a foundry up and over New Hampshire, and some 2 ton of iron or something fell on his hand and he couldn't work. And he was wandering around, and Tommy had the idea too, because he had been acting in that and he'd been in a show band in Ireland. But he wanted to put out an LP. And that gave me the idea, with Tommy, to form the group. This was one of the first we put out.
That was recorded in March of 1956.
In Kenny Goldstein's kitchen.
In the Bronx.
But I never thought when we were doing that record that I was going to be singing at all, because that was only, I think all of us at that time felt that we were going to do other than singing when we did the Rising of the Moon.
Oh yeah, well that was just we were passing through. I remember I was delighted because Paddy paid me $30 for singing a couple of songs.
When we sang a rebel song in those days, it wasn't to present any political point of view, except to show that there were interesting songs about what people were doing in Ireland. You know, it was just because it is an interesting human expression. It happened to be in the form of a rebel song, but it could be in the form of a work song, it could be a love song, it could be in any kind of song.
I think the folk songs always told more truth about history than the history books anyway. As somebody said, written history is nothing more than the propaganda of the victor.
For me, I never heard a singer as good as Liam ever. He was just the best ballad singer I'd ever heard in my life. And still is, probably. I don't think I can think of anybody who's a better ballad singer than Liam.
I wish I was in Carrick Farm, only for nights in
There's always a certain brotherly rivalry between Paddy and Tom, and a resentment of this young brother coming along, being able to play and sing, and somehow bringing the musical side of the group, bringing that into focus. There was a certain resentment. The kid brother, who the hell does he think he is? And we had a lot of fights that way. But that also brought Tommy and I closer.
and I can't swim over, and neither have I wings to fly. I wish I could be a handsome boatman to ferry me over to my loving land. One pleasant evening in the month of June.
You remember when we did that
We
one?
put out this one, drinking songs, which seemed fairly popular. Somehow it seemed much easier to sell songs of drinking because it implied fun, I suppose.
We recorded that in the theatre. You were doing Ulysses. They sang, all the boys came and sang on it. The crowd that used to be at the White Horse.
They did, yes.
There was a great gang at the White Horse at that time.
Just lay me down in my native heat, where the jug of punch at my hand.
We didn't have a style. People kept saying, I like the style you sing in. We didn't know what they were talking about. We just sang the songs as loudly as we could because there were four of us there. And Liam got his guitar style because he had a small guitar and there would be one microphone. He'd have to hold the guitar up like this and play it like this so it would be heard to keep us in tune. At one point in our careers, I tried to play the bagpipes. We would play the bagpipes and walk on stage, and then we'd stop the bagpipes and we'd start to sing, and nobody could hear the guitar of the bagpipes, and we'd all out of tune, so we had to give it up.
And now the storm is over, and we are safe and well. We will go into a public house and we sit and drink like hell.
This was the one that we really went professional on. We even had the name, the Clancy Brothers and
Oh, and guitars and everything on that.
That was the first time.
That's actually the first time the name the Clancy Brothers and Tommy Makem was used.
On a record.
I'd love to find that piece of paper where we put all the possible group names that we might have.
What do you mean, piece of paper? That was a whole exercise book.
The Beggarman, the Tinkers. We even tied around there the Chieftains.
Yeah, the Druids, the Moonshiners, everything.
We used to try and do 3 weeks. That it would be 3 weeks of one-night stands and then break. And we did that. We had a rule that we would do that. And we would do that maybe for 6 months. And then at the end of 6 months, we'd stop altogether and go our own separate ways, maybe for a month. And I think that helped when we came back together, it freshened it again. Columbia Records signed us up after we did the Ed Sullivan TV show. They became interested immediately when they saw us on television. And this was the first one of those. Pete Seeger was on the banjo.
That's the first record that we wore sweaters on. Jewish manager in New York named Marty Ehrlichman. And he thought we had great potential, but he couldn't figure out how to package us. You know, he wanted to package us somehow. And he just didn't know how to do it until he saw these sweaters that our mother had sent us. As soon as he saw the sweaters, he said, "That's it." He said, "That's it. That's exactly what I want."
We rode up through Galway town to seek for recreation. On the 17th of August, we might be elevated. There was multitudes assembled with their tickets at the station. The eyes began to dazzle and I go to see the races with me. Whack, all the dough, all the diddly idle.
We just couldn't believe the luck that we had. We couldn't believe the luck of being successful and playing places like the Playboy clubs and going back to Hefner's apartment afterwards and, you know, chasing the bunnies.
You didn't get enough sleep, or you'd be out all night and you'd be talking and yakking and at parties and singing all night, and you'd have to move on the next day to go to someplace else. But it was mostly physical thing. But there was very little mental pain because things just sort of fell together for us.
With me roo-boo-boo, Randy, and me lapstone keeps bitten away.
You'd meet the people who produced the show. You had to go and drink with them after the show, and the late nights and a lot of drinking.
Hey, I'm a rambler, I'm a gambler, I'm a long ways from home. And if you don't like me, well, leave me alone. I'll eat when I'm hungry, I'll drink when I'm dry.
And eventually the hangovers became very great for me, and I decided at that time that I'd better stop completely on alcohol altogether, and that was 10 years ago, and I haven't had a drink since then. And I find that mornings are a lot better.
And a moonshine don't kill me, I live till I die.
Being fated by people like Pat O'Brien, finding that Bing Crosby wanted to record with us and Maureen O'Hara wanted to record with us. It was just unbelievable. Been offered our own television series. You know, there was very little hardship in that.
The emblem of our nation, when the bell was rung for starting, all the horses seemed impatient. I thought they never